We're proud to partner with Bunker Hill Community College, powering Boston's future workforce through access, equity, and innovation in higher education. Thank you for supporting Rooted in the future of public media. Click the link in the description or visit bhcc.edu to learn more. Right now on Rooted, we're asking who gets to decide when someone with mental health challenges is no longer able to make decisions for themselves. I'm Paris Alston, and I'm joined by Aimee Griffin of Life and Legacy Counselors, marriage and family counselor Rob Badgett, and Dr. Charles Daniels of Fathers Uplift. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you so much
for
having us and having the conversation.
Absolutely. So we first reached out to each of you because of that recent interview with rapper Gucci Mane and his wife, Keisha Kayor, on The Breakfast Club. I'm curious from you, Rob, what was your initial reaction to that?
Oh, man, my my flags immediately started to go off for a couple of different reasons. I think, first off, I commend him, a person of his stature, coming out and sharing his battle with mental health. And you know, if you're familiar with any of his music, some of the things that he said was, you know, real pertinent to the lifestyle that he leads or led and, you know, how he got to where he is. So I commend him for that. I think some of the things that I thought were a bit concerning was right in the beginning of the conversation with his wife, some of the terminology she used where she said, I could fix him. And it was before they were married, which that in of itself I thought was alarming. One, because you can't fix him. You know, we can't just fix people. And two, just kind of the idea of these were his symptoms, and if I responded to him like this, then he'd be okay in how he was handling his episodes. I think that out the gate was some flags for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Dr. Daniels, what about you? I mean, what exactly is happening for a family member in this situation, and what's happening for the person who's experiencing the crisis?
Absolutely. So what we know about Gucci Mane, Mr. Davis, is that he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a mood disorder, and schizophrenia, paranoia schizophrenia in 2013. So you're going to have those intrusive thoughts. You're going to have paranoia on both ends, which could be extremely dangerous. So for someone who's experiencing those things, there's a lot that's going on with them. Perhaps he's mentioned some of those in his interview. He was getting away a lot of his journey, his jewelry. He was doing a lot of things in a manic way, right? Things that were uncommon to his actually position and his predisposition. His partner really noticed some of those things, which I can give her credit for actually noticing some of the symptoms and making sure that he gets the assistance. I think one of the things that really gives me concern is that she would tell you that I am the real therapist. She said it in the interview. She said he doesn't need a therapist. I am the real therapist. The thing about that is when you're with your partner, you can't be a therapist with them. You have to have clear boundaries. One thing that family members need to know when they are involved with partners, men, women, whoever the situation is that's experiencing this mood disorder as well as schizophrenia concurrently, you have to have clear boundaries. You have to have other experts involved in the picture. You also have to understand that you cannot do everything by yourself, that it's not an end all be all. You have to determine which person you're going to be. Are you going to be the person who's in relationship with the partner? Or are you going to be the one that enforces rules, regulations, accountability? Or are you going to be just a supporter in the process? What we're noticing in this situation that she's trying to be everything. And just real quickly, we see what she's experiencing similar to what happened with Boston trying to bring mental health first aid, this technique to the city of Boston. New York adopted it in policy wholeheartedly, but when Boston tried to bring it, one of the downsides of bringing mental health first aid is that you train people about the symptoms of mental health, and then they think they're therapists without the training, right? So that's the downside. So we kind of see his wife take on that disposition. She's the therapist in her words.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, right, living in the digital age, social media age, a lot of people think they're therapists who don't necessarily have the qualifications. So, Aimee, I'm curious, how does a situation like this go from mental health crisis, say, to a conservatorship or a guardianship?
So if you cannot manage your affairs, right? If you don't have the wherewithal, either physically, emotionally, psychologically, have the capacity to manage your affairs, then someone else is given the authority to do that. Ideally, it's someone who knows that you know, like, or trust, However, and if that person isn't able to, and you're not willing to relinquish that authority, that's when the court gets involved. And sometimes when we have mental health issues, we don't understand or appreciate the level of our illness. And so therefore we think that we have capacity to do all things. And unfortunately, when we don't, that's when the court needs to step in and take away those responsibilities and the authority. And that's when a conservator is appointed.
Now, I do want to look back at 2011 when Gucci Mane entered a plea of mental incompetence for a charge that he was facing then. And the judge ordered him to be committed to a mental health treatment facility. And I understand that this is commonplace, but I'm curious how often someone may be turning to that plea to maybe get a lesser sentence. And does that lead to higher rates of involuntary commitment, Aimee?
So what you know is people often may say, I'm not competent, but that's not a first choice because you relinquish your control. You can't just say, okay, I'm good now, right? And therefore are able to resume and maintain the authority to act on your own behalf. So people aren't quick to do that. And what we know is we even have permission to make bad decisions. We can make bad decisions, and we all know people who make bad decisions. It is, however, when you are a risk to yourself or others is when there is court involvement.
So, Rob, is this something that is disproportionate to Black men? Does this happen at a disproportionate rate that, they may be committed, whether it's something coming off of a criminal act or just in general because of what we know about the higher rates of diagnosis for severe mental health illnesses for Black men?
Well, I think one of the things that he kind of talked about a little bit it might have been him or the interviewers were, and he was talking about Black men and as it relates to mental health by and large. So we know historically for African Americans as a whole, our introduction to the mental health services and support, we're not usually the first to be supported. So there's already a disconnect in terms of what supports might be available in our hesitancy to, when it is available, to even consider it. So I think obviously systemically there's a disconnect. Right. But men now coming out to deal with these things, I think that has increased a little bit. We still have a ways to go in terms of reshaping or becoming more a part of the culture. I think there's been some progress. By and large, though, we have a ways to go. But what I do think was very visible was the lack of education around how do I get the necessary support that might be speaking specifically to me. Now, when it comes to trying to get lesser penalties and punishments, the flip side of that is, as my sister said, when you now cannot advocate for yourself, you may not have the decision in what type of medications you might be getting. You have to take these things. So there is a risk of, I might start doing something or taking something that I thought I was just going to get some lesser response or lesser time. But now there's a whole new level of dependency that might be a part of where I'm at. So I think it varies, right? But I don't think that folks by and large are thinking, I need to go this route because of what might happen to me as far as the criminal system goes. I think they are aware now there might be a risk. I might take something and I might not come back the same.
So, Dr. Daniels, how exactly can people maintain their autonomy in this situation?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, it's very important to have people around you that you trust. Right? We know that when you're experiencing a mental health situation, an episode, you can really lose sight of your reality. It also can be in a vulnerable position where it would be extremely difficult for you to navigate things on your own. So if you don't have anyone around you that you actually trust, you can get taken advantage of. Secondly, you have to make sure that you are understanding what it is that you're experiencing, that you find the necessary supports in place, you find the necessary assistance that you need to make sure that you're fully aware of what's going on with you. Third, I would say it's going to be very important that you accept the situation, accept what's actually occurring. Oftentimes, individuals in this position have a distrust in the system, rightfully so, right? But there are some things in the system that can be of use to you if you allow yourself to trust the process as well as understand what's going on around you and what's going on with your situation. Last but not least, I think it's very important to make sure that in this case of Gucci Mane, right, he needs medication, right? Antidepressants, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, whatever the case may be. He has to have the right care team around him to make sure that he's of support. And if you're a family member navigating this situation, you also have to know that you're not alone. If you have a family member experiencing this, there's plenty of resources that you can reach out to get the necessary and appropriate assistance. You can call 988 for free. They will direct you to the appropriate resources. There's local community resources that you can take advantage of to make sure that you can support the individual in your life the best that you can without getting burned out in the process. It's a very stressful time for the person that experienced it, as well as the family member that's assisting the person in the process.
Mm-hmm. And Aimee, for the person who is experiencing a mental health crisis, what legal actions can they take in that moment to protect themselves, especially if they don't want things to end up in a conservatorship?
One of the things that we always encourage people to do is when we expect that we're not going to plan when it's the emergency. If we can be sort of thoughtful about anticipating once we're an adult, we should have those plans in place so that we're not waiting until that distress or the emergency happens. What we know is having that contingency. Yes, I identify these are the people who can speak for me when I can't speak for myself, right? And then a backup to the backup. Because what is true is we're talking about the fact that his wife wants to be all things to him. And if she is no longer able to be, what does that look like? And so creating the support systems in place, the support system in place, so that what we know is, one, we don't necessarily have to have the court involved, but if we have the strategy based in place, who do I want to have? And it may not be the wife, because the wife is going to be the caretaker, but can it be someone that like and trust, who can manage your money, that but there are checks and balances, because we've all seen situations where that conservator goes in and they live their best life while the person who is disabled is losing everything. So having the checks and balances in place to make sure that you're not taken advantage of.
So, Rob, I'm going to pose this last question to you here. What needs to change in the mental health care system to allow patients more autonomy?
Oh man, I think there's so much that needs to change. In terms of supporting people within the BIPOC community, what I think needs to change is more people within the community and culture need to become advocates and leaders within the culture. I think that there are pains and sicknesses that how we respond might be totally different. I think we have to become the people, the experts, the doctors, the therapists in the culture of mental health, and start to really lead the charge in terms of how we support our people.
Well, Dr. Rob Badgett, Dr. Charles Daniels, and Aimee Griffin, this has been a great conversation. Hope it's not the last one that we have. Thank each of you so much.
Bunker Hill Community College is inspiring dreams through academic excellence, community engagement, and workforce partnerships. Learn more at bhcc.edu.